Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, October 11th, 2016. First on tonight's agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of the meeting of September 26th, 2016.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a vote. Thank you very much. Nothing on tonight's agenda underneath communications. So moving on underneath audience. We're maybe not ready for audience, Dr. Cron, is that correct?
Yes, I don't see Mr. Graziano or the cross-country coaches. And
So maybe we'll come back to the cross-country team if they get here in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Next on tonight's agenda is our superintendent's report, Dr. Cron.
Thank you. First, I'd like to update everyone on my entry plan. The entry plan is in 3 phases, and phase 1 is to do a lot of meeting and talking and learning and listening, which I've been doing a lot of. Today, my entry plan also aligns with our strategic planning process, and today I held the second meeting with our 20-member strategic planning committee. My plan is on December 12th to give a report to the school committee and at the same time update the school committee on the work of the strategic planning committee. Again, we had 20 school leaders in the library this afternoon working on our core values and talking about our future direction. It was very, very exciting. Part of my entry plan is holding parent coffees and open forums for people to come in and get a chance to speak with me. I also had lunch with Representative David DeCoste last week, and Mr. Biggins was kind enough to join us, as well as John Retchless. And it's nice to hear views from our political leaders, as well as our local community leaders, as well as the kindergarten teachers who came to visit me at 7:30 in the morning for coffee. So I am learning a ton and really enjoying that process. Next on my list is just a little update. As some of you may or may not know, the way our building is designed, we are sort of short on parking on the high school side, and it creates a problem for the preschool. And so anyone who's driven in, you've seen our cars are double parked. So we've been looking at that and talking a lot about that. And I reached out to our good friend Scott McKinley and the pastor of the Baptist church next door, Pastor Withall, and have had meetings with Mark Sham and leaders from daycare and Mr. Harrison to talk about possible solutions. So Scott McKinley and the Baptist church, the Rockland Baptist Church, are kind enough to be offering us 22 spaces over there, and we're making some arrangements to put in a walk-through gate and a nice safe walkway for our faculty, particularly our preschool, and we're looking at making this a much safer area behind the daycare. Our last discussion has led us to designing a turnaround, a drop-off area in the preschool, and so I just asked parents to keep their eyes open for some communications from us about what we're going to be asking of them. The hope is that we're going to come up with a much safer solution for drop-off of our preschool. It happens 4 times a day, so it can get very congested back there. High school folks are dropping off in the morning. People are parking. Town Hall has traffic. So I'm very pleased with, thankful for the Baptist Church to step up and be such good neighbors and so open to helping us out with this, because it really is an issue.
Is there a financial arrangement with them?
Yeah, we haven't made one yet, but I'll tell you, I think we're going to do a little good old-fashioned bartering on some levels. Yeah. And one of the things that I've asked Mark Chom to do, our director of facilities, is to get us a price to restripe the whole parking lot.
And maybe plow it.
Well, they're getting plowing currently from their neighbor across the street, who they rent a substantial number of spaces to. Yeah, I know. But they also have needs for projects around the church that can cost them $70, $80 an hour to hire someone, and we have some very talented seniors who will work with Mr. Parker. Good. And they may be able to do some of those things. So we're going to work out a very mutually beneficial arrangement with them.
Great. That's great.
And So I'm happy about that.
Very good.
Thank you for doing that. I know that was a large concern from a lot of parties. I mean, the preschool parents, of course, as you cited, wanted to make sure that the preschool kids can be dropped off and picked up safely, and parents can get in and out of that parking lot in an organized way, and to make sure that we can respect the town hall folks and know that they have ample parking over there. Now, question on the path. We had talked a little bit about that you might be putting a path between the parking lot here and going over to the church parking lot. Would there be some lighting in there for early morning hours when people were arriving and staff were arriving and leaving at the end of the day?
We will make sure that there's lighting. Now, I haven't spoken to Mr. Sham since you and I spoke, but we will definitely make that happen. And I also know Mark has been in touch with, Town Hall and permits and pulling all of that and making all of those arrangements. So we'll make sure we do everything, by the book, but also make sure it's very safe for any of our teachers that have to walk a little bit more than they were, currently.
I thought there was a path already.
There used to be a path.
Oh, they did away with it?
There used to be a path during construction. There was a drive
that's what I
through.
remember.
So we're looking at putting in a path
Okay.
that would, and have it graded properly in the whole 9 yards.
Okay, I didn't realize they'd done away with that one.
Yeah. The next thing I'd like to update the school committee and the public on, I'm one of 28 new superintendents in Massachusetts this year.
Wow.
And I belong to a cohort of those superintendents who we get together to learn how to be as successful as we can in our first year. And it's a cooperative relationship between the Massachusetts Superintendents Association and the Department of Education. And I had my third session last week, third full day meeting, and it's going extremely well. It's very helpful. It's nice to have so many people I can pick up the phone and call. But I also have a network of other superintendents who I know, and it's nice to have both sides. So I just wanted to update you on that. Next, I'd like to thank, right now, actually, in the lecture hall, Nia Callahan and Sarah Hologatis, who's our data manager. They are running a session for families where English is not their primary language, helping them to understand NutriKids and our school buck system, our X2 Aspen system, free and reduced lunch applications, just making sure that our non-English speaking families are getting the kind of translation help that they need. As you know, our population, English language learners, is growing very quickly. So I just want to thank Nia and Sarah for extending themselves and offering this service, and I understand the turnout's pretty good.
I was just there, and the lecture hall was completely.
I wondered, I saw all the traffic outside.
Yes, one side was half full.
Yeah, that's great.
So I just wanted to thank them.
Yep.
I'd also like to thank another group that I came into contact through the entry plan was our CPAC, our district-wide CPAC. And so I'd like to thank Patty Ann Mayo and Marcy Little Conley, who came by and introduced themselves. I'd met them before, but just talking about the meetings that they hold for all parents and families with students with special needs. But their information is applicable to any family. So they have a number of meetings throughout the year. I did a phone alert on their first meeting, but I wanted to give out Ms. Conley's email. It's mkconley, so mkconley@verizon.net. If you have any questions about their meetings or about any kind of supports that we have in the district for special education parents, I want you to be able to reach out to them. They're very enthusiastic, helpful, easy to talk to, so I encourage you to reach out to them. And my final piece of information, I received a call. I received a call on September 26th from Miss Sarah Blanc-Schwartz of the Massachusetts Building Authority, informing me that Rockland's application to the Building Authority had been moved on to the second phase. We had filed last year a request to be considered for a building project for both the Memorial Park and the Jefferson School, and they are going to join us on November 9th. We're going to have a team from the MSBA who's going to come and tour both schools. I want to thank Ed Kimball, our chairman of the Selectmen, Rich Penny, and the members of our team that we're putting together. It'll include Mr. Biggins as well, to meet that committee and lead them through this process. We asked, I was on the phone, I've been on the phone with her several times since I received the notice, and I asked her how many applied, and 89 towns filed applications, and how many are going to receive site visits, and she informed me that that number is 30. Wow. Last year the state funded 23 projects, so we are there's a very good possibility that we may be receiving this offer. I can't tell you how exciting that is, to think that our youngest students could have possibly in 4 or 5 years the same level of resources that we have now for our middle and high school students. I particularly am getting more and more excited about the idea of extending what we've done in kindergarten to the preschool, and being able to possibly offer full, free preschool for all 4-year-olds in the entire town of Rockland. The possibilities are pretty amazing. So I'm very excited about the visit. A little overwhelmed at first, but now I'm just excited. And the selectmen were outstanding. I went and presented this to the selectmen on November 9th. No, I take that back. On October 4th, I spoke to the selectmen because they co-signed on the original application. And I will tell you, the reception that I received was overwhelmingly positive. And at the end of the meeting, they get a chance to speak. And again, some of the comments and the support is there. And I expect that we're going to have quite an impressive group and presentation for the team that comes on the 9th. So we're looking forward to that. And that is the end of my report.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Really exciting news about the MSBA.
Very
That's
exciting.
Really fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Crone. Next on tonight's agenda, monthly reports for the month of September. We have 4 reports from Mr. Harrison, Ms. Bond, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Shifley, and Mrs. Sheehan. We have the administrator's reports. Mrs. Black, we have the guidance reports, and Mrs. Ryan prepared the nurses report for us, and Mrs. Maniglia prepared the pupil personnel services report. I'll entertain 4 motions for the monthly reports.
4 seconds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next on tonight's agenda, for your information, school newsletters for October. Always colorful, always very informative, and I always say I always learn something new from reading our school newsletters. So thank you all for those that prepare these. They are fantastic, and we really enjoy being able to read them. Also for your information is building rentals for September. We like seeing our buildings kept busy, so thank you for that. Moving right on, also for your information, next on tonight's agenda is completed fundraisers. We have one completed fundraiser that was completed by the Rockland High School hockey team. It was the Dogs Dash, which was wildly successful. They were able to raise $6,273.21, which is incredibly impressive. So thanks to all that organized and all that took place in that. And I suspect our town is just a little bit healthier and a little bit more fit and in shape for having taken part.
Well, plus the fact, by raising this money, people may or may not realize how expensive the hockey program is. And they contribute a tremendous amount of money towards the program so that these kids can have that hour of practice, play those games. It's a tremendous help, and this is only part of what they do, so good for them.
Absolutely.
My guess is if Linda McCullough and this group didn't do these kind of things, we probably wouldn't have a hockey.
Absolutely,
We probably
absolutely,
wouldn't have had a
Mark.
hockey team.
Absolutely.
So
I believe it.
congratulations to them, it's a great job.
Without a doubt. Okay, next on tonight's agenda, we have been talking about this for a little while, is our out-of-country trip to Guatemala. We will be meeting with the ladies from Worthy Village. Ladies, welcome. Now, we've met with these ladies for the past couple of meetings in consideration of approving the out-of-country student trip to Guatemala. And these ladies have been kind enough to come back to us on a couple of occasions now to help us to understand and to be able to make a good decision about the trip. And welcome, thank you for being here. Go ahead, is there anything that you have to say before we
we
get
just
started?
wanted to walk you guys through a couple of the pieces of the packet that
Please.
we submitted. Addressing 4 of the more important points that we talked about over the last 2 weeks, we went through and edited the entire application, which is first in your packet. All the dates, spelling errors, bi-monthly, all that was resolved. So we're really excited to be able to offer this really thorough application for parents and kids that really helps the parents be aware of what their kid is interested in doing. Also, one thing that's really important to point out in the application is the travel insurance, which if you guys find it in your packet is under the payment plan. Amanda Lanigan was in contact with Travel Guard, and we got a really good quote for $74 about, which would cover 150% of their trip should there be any interruptions, including a medical emergency with one of the children.
And what that covers is the return home for any travel companions, and travel companion applies to anyone who stays in the same accommodations that you do, so that would include all of the chaperones and all of the kids, and as long as they purchase it, which we're going to require them to do, it's roughly $75 per child depending on the quote. They said it might vary, it might actually go down. So basically if there's sickness or illness that requires, or some extreme circumstance that we don't want to really even think about, that would require one student and a chaperone to fly home, the rest of the students would be covered. It is a pay and file, so what would happen was they would pay and then the insurance company would reimburse them for 150% of their trip. So that's also in addition to the evacuation, the medical evacuation service that Worthy Village already has through Patriot Insurance. And the health insurance that covers kind of extreme injuries, et cetera, that Worthy Village has. So we're kind of doubling up on insurance, but we figured we couldn't be too covered. So we did get that quote from Travel Guard. So that would cover kind of one of our concerns.
Additionally, in the application packet, we went ahead and listed a good chunk of important dates, including a mandatory meeting for all students and parents interested in applying, which would happen on the 18th, where we kind of walk the parents through the itinerary, what's expected, what the risks are, and et cetera. Applications at this point would be due on the 20th for any kids interested in applying, and they would require a parent signature sheet for the parents to sign off on this to-do list that's also listed in your packet.
Yeah, we make sure to ensure the to-do list covered kind of the vaccines and things, but it's worded in such a way that it demonstrates that Worthy Village is requiring them, because I know you guys were concerned about liability for the school. So it does say that Worthy Village, the outside company, requires that they have these vaccinations and various other things in order to take the trip. So it kind of takes some liability off of the school.
Definitely. A couple of other things in the packet. We were working really hard on an emergency plan, which I know is really important. It was a really good process for us to kind of sit down and talk about what we were really to do in the event of a really serious emergency. In your packet, it's listed right behind emergency plan information and contracts. In terms of the emergency information, we gave all possible information on average ambulance response times, nearest hospitals, what we would do in the event that one student had to go to the hospital, but the rest of us had to stay with the kids, et cetera. We tried to be very thorough with it as much as possible.
Yeah, and to kind of summarize the plan, being first aid trained in like various different capacities, in the event of most emergencies, I would be responsible for immediate response. If we were somewhere where an ambulance would make more sense, we would have the ambulance come. If it would be a shorter time for us to drive in the private shuttle, we would drive. It would all depend on our location. And then at all times, we would have 2 people with the students. It would be Julia and Mel staying behind with them, and then we would initiate the process of calling Travel Guard and getting everybody out in the event that something were to require people to go home.
And that's good too, because there would be a fluent Spanish speaker with both parties.
Yeah.
So you would go with Victoria, who's fluent, and I would stay with the kids, and I'm fluent.
And Victoria is a social worker that works for Worthy Village in Guatemala. She's a Guatemalan resident who's fluent in English, Spanish, and local dialect as well. And being a social worker, she's very in tune to the emergency services, and we actually contacted her. She can walk through like kind of the visiting the hospital process and the traveling process and what would be best based on where we were. So she was a really important kind of on-the-ground resource.
Yep. The last thing that we really wanted to draw your attention to is under a water filter installation. There were some concerns with how kids would be installing water filters, and we realized on our own fault that we weren't really clear on exactly what the process is. So we summarize it as is essentially a large plastic bucket that you plug a rubber hose into, and you set it on top of a table, and you teach the families, kind of walk them through how to put the unfiltered water in and how to get the filtered water out.
In short, everything that belongs to the filter is plastic. There's no metal, no tools involved at all
Yeah.
whatsoever.
And I think that should help to alleviate some safety concerns. The big thing when we say water installation, the big learning experience for the students is going to be interacting with the families and saying, take the contaminated water and pour it into the bucket, and showing them, because to us it's very simple. It's basically the filter has like a sports water cap on the end, and to us it's very simple to know, like, open it and pull it. But they've never experienced anything like that before, so it's just a very simple kind of like open it and pull it that the kids are going to be teaching the families. So it sounds way more intense when you say water filter installation, but it's really quite simple.
Very simple.
Yeah. So,
Aside from that, the very last chunk of the hefty packet that we submitted is a newly edited Worthy Village travel packet specific to students at RHS, which has very clear instructions and directions on what we expect of them in terms of drug and alcohol, what we expect in terms of trip coverage, and what's not covered in the trip cost.
yeah, and they also have legal documents kind of at the very, very end that go with Worthy Village, and maybe Julia can explain them a little bit more. Form A and Form B discuss kind of the liability of Worthy Village and what they're expected to cover and things like that. So that would be another good resource for, just for parents to be aware of what's being covered and things like that.
And this is something that we can walk through also when we have the meeting with the parents and the kids interested in applying as well.
Yeah, and we're going to require any student that comes, that is thinking of applying, to attend the meeting where we're going to walk them through the packet and explain exactly, you know, this is the risk, this is what's covered, this is what's not. Because we realize, for me, like, having done the trip, I know everything about it, but we realize, okay, parents are sending their children into the unknown, and it's scary and it's terrifying, so we kind of wanted to provide as much information as humanly possible.
And I know it was a concern to sort of make the parent aware when they make the decision that, you know, the medical facilities and the healthcare are not up to par as they would be in the United States. So that's very clearly stated in the medical and evacuation insurance contract, which allows us to acquire the information necessary from the student to purchase their insurance. It also states very clearly that these risks increase under in developed countries such as Guatemala should a medical or other emergency arise. Local facilities and services will most likely not be up to the standards that we are used to here in the United States.
And it's definitely been a learning experience to hear from the community, and you guys representing the community, about the various different concerns that are kind of swirling around trips like this. And it's definitely, I think, been helpful for Julia's company to
Sure,
say, like,
yes.
oh, this is something that we're going to have to cover and whatnot. So,
Has been very useful.
Yeah.
so
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Thank you. Questions?
So my one concern that I asked you about is still not answered. So I will tell you that we will take this, we will probably have a motion whether to approve or not approve, but I would approve this trip with the caveat that we add an additional male chaperone to cover the boys that go on this trip for any issues that may arise that are male-related.
Can we,
Okay.
can we comment on that briefly?
I mean, I guess I'm a little frustrated because I asked about it, and all we did was get the same list. There was not even like a commentary section. We took it under advisement. This is what we decided. This is why we decided. And I know that you have two members that aren't here tonight that I know fully supported you. Unfortunately, they're not here for this vote, so.
We understand that. One of the reasons that we opted not to include a third chaperone is that it would increase the trip cost for the kids by a couple of $100s. Other than that, we didn't believe that it was necessary, I guess, to have more than a 1-to-5 ratio. I do hear your concern, and we did take it under advisement. It just, we thought that we'd have more opportunity for the children to travel if we could keep the price lower.
yeah, that was our main, but we,
Yeah.
in hindsight, obviously should have
Yeah.
commented on that. So,
Please
I
excuse me.
apologize.
I think
Yeah.
we took it more as a suggestion. I don't think we understood how.
Well, I guess I have a concern of sending whatever number of boys to a third world country, and when I look at the packet, nothing against you ladies, but there are 5 females listed here, and there's not one male listed here. Now, if this became, I wouldn't send my daughter with 5 males in
makes
case there was
sense.
a female issue that was involved.
that
Yeah.
makes
We
sense.
do
We
So-
understand.
Not that, I'm not sure that this really helps, but we do have an on-site member of staff who is a male who would be with us for, day to day. But I'm not sure if that really helps your concern.
I guess what I look at is I look how Ms. Walsh runs a trip. If there's a group of boys, she's got male chaperones checking on males at night, what's going on, that kind of thing. Ms. Bond's here tonight looking for approval on her Philly trip. There will be male chaperones with male students.
Yeah.
Can I comment on that a little bit? So when I went to Mexico, I took 13 students to Mexico this summer with the State Department, and we actually had mostly females. There was one male chaperone, but most of the responsibility was carried by female chaperones. And the way that we kind of structured it was we just said that despite the fact that we're female, we are allowed, if we feel any suspicion of anything going on, whatever, we can search your bags. There was an incident where we did have to take a student to the hospital for dehydration, and a female chaperone went with him. But I think kind of traveling with the kids, it kind of, I don't know how to put this, but like all the kind of discomfort and gender norms and all of that, we were able to surpass those. However, we could definitely work on looking for a male chaperone. I think one of the issues too was the other trip that's running during April has 2 of the males from our school that are going, and I don't think there's any other males who are able to participate in our trip.
Mr. Graziano to Guatemala instead of...
He doesn't seem into it.
Yeah, I don't even, I thought he was, never mind, but yeah.
We
So
appreciate your concern, and I'm sorry that we didn't note that in writing. I want you to know we did really carefully think about it,
Yeah,
though.
we
We
did
just were
discuss it
thinking
a
about
lot.
the kids
Yeah,
in the end.
but we do have the male on site. We have, yeah.
I just want to know what the superintendent's recommendation would be.
I think if we added another chaperone, I would be comfortable approving the trip. I think the risks are outweighed by the rewards, potentially. I think the families having the choice, given all of the information. But I do agree with Mr. Norris that adding a male chaperone for the boys if there is an issue. I know, again, Ms. Walsh is very careful to have a balance, so that would be my recommendation.
So just a couple of comments. I very much am in support of a service trip like this. I think that it's fantastic that kids are going to have the opportunity to learn, boots on the ground, to be able to really make a difference for some other people in other parts of the world. Absolutely all of that. I do share the concern about the chaperone, and I am very gentle and delicate about talking about the sex part of it. Be it male or female. And I think that you ladies, you're perfectly capable of leading this trip, and it's not an issue of capability. But as Mr. Norris referenced, I think a lot of times there are personal gender comforts, and for a boy, you might be more comfortable with certain issues being able to have a male influence on the staff to be able to confide in a little bit. I hope that the fact that this is now our 3rd meeting discussing this, I think, portrays how much care this committee is giving to this and how careful we are about wanting to make a good decision to send our kids off for this. I personally do support you. I don't know if the other 2 members of the committee, if anybody has a motion that they'd like to make one way or the other.
I'll make a motion, we approve the trip with the caveat that we had a male chaperone.
I will second that motion. All those in favor? 2 for, 1 opposed. So that's a vote. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Okay, next on tonight's agenda, I think we have our audience that has arrived here. Is everyone here from Mr. Graziano and the cross-country team? Welcome, guys. Welcome, girls.
Good evening, everyone.
What a handsome
Good
gentleman.
evening, Gary.
Great pleasure to
Good to see
hold
you.
off my dinner and my first night of my wood stove tonight to come up and present to you some wonderful things in the
Tells me you're
athletic
not tough
department.
enough.
Yeah, too much information, you just heard that from your boss.
Okay.
TMI.
In the athletic department, we'll be receiving the Social League Sportsmanship Award for the 2nd time in 3 years. We'll be receiving that this Friday at the Social League Athletic Director and Principals meeting. That'll be the first meeting our new principal, Mr. John Harrison, will be attending, and he's excited for that. To make a point about that, two out of 3 years is pretty good when you have such a competitive program. When I started, Mr. Sangster, his philosophy was, let's win and act like we've been there before, win with class, have the kids and the fans have a good time at a game, despite what the photographer's doing at a basketball game. Let the kids have a great time and everything goes smoothly. And we've gone with that for 10 years and we've been very successful, and I'm very proud of all of our teams.
Mr. Graziano, just add in, despite that comment, the basketball team did get the Sportsmanship Award
They
from the
did.
referees last year. if you remember.
I was referring to another photographer.
No, you weren't.
Well, I'd like to share with you two correspondents from two different teams in the South Shore League, then bring the people responsible up for this for you to have a question and for Mr. Murphy to introduce. We received a letter from Randolph High School. I'm writing you to share something special that I observed yesterday at the cross-country meet between Randolph and Rockland. My name is Steve LeClaire, and I'm one of the Randolph cross-country coaches. At the end of the girls' race, one of our runners was significantly behind the rest of the girls who had already finished. As I looked across the field, Genesis Rojas ran out to encourage and accompany our athlete to the finish line. She ran with her, walked with her, and when they came to the final straightaway, curved away so that the Randolph runner would alone receive the cheers she deserved. No one asked Genesis to do this, and as pure and active sportsmanship that I have observed, she just did it. This is an example of why cross-country athletes are often the finest representatives of their team, school, and family. Genesis represents all of those at the highest level. I wanted to be sure that you became aware of her actions and how impressed I was when I witnessed this. It is no surprise that the level of sportsmanship happened at Rockland High School. Coach Murphy's expectations and actions have always shown his athletes what sportsmanship is all about. His expectations for effort and representation are consistently high. We have always had extremely positive experiences when our schools meet. Please be sure to let Genesis, Coach Murphy, and the entire cross-country know the level of respect we hold for them. Sincerely, Steve LeClaire from Randolph High School. And then the following week, we received an email from Middleborough High School, new into the league, and it states, "It was a pleasure to host your team yesterday. Congratulations on your double win, and please let your athletes know that they made a wonderful, positive impression on my team, and we're glad to be part of the South Shore League. Good luck in October. Sean Kenny, Middleborough cross-country coach." It was thrilling to get this for me, for John Harrison, and I would like at this time to introduce the people responsible for this great act, Mr. Robert Murphy and Coach Patrick Finn, our new first-year cross-country coach. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Hi,
gentlemen.
everybody. It was a pleasure to get the letter that not only the Middleborough coach but also the Randolph coach had sent to us. We always have such a great time in cross country. One of the things I try to instill on our students and our athletes is that sportsmanship is number one, and we have been very successful in winning the sportsmanship award in the South Shore League for the last 5 years. I think 4 times out of the last 5 years, and the one time we didn't win it, we tied for second place. So we're really proud of that. Our team has always done 110%, and we really show what it means to be a Bulldog in Rockland. So I'm very proud of this.
I feel very fortunate to join such a great community, especially from the cross-country and track and field perspective. We have a wonderful group of kids that never quit. We might not have the best record, but every week they're improving, shaking hands with coaches, cheering on other teams. It honestly makes it a lot of fun to coach a group of kids like that. So, I mean, I know that Robert and I are the ones speaking right now, but I wouldn't be here if those kids didn't participate. So
we'd like to get them up here, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
That's
please.
okay. Could
Come
I
on
have
up, guys and
Sabrina
girls.
Sprague?
Shuffle right on.
Yeah, she's right on in here. We have Haley Crocker. Come on up. Our captains. Vivian Nguyen, who is our manager extraordinaire
makes life a lot easier.
for us. We have Seth Rzuski, who is a little injured after today's meet. Cornell McWilliams, who couldn't make it here tonight because he's practicing for Mr. Rockland. And last but not least, we have Genesis. Come on up here, Genesis.
I just got to tell you, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, what you got, the commitment that you guys put in, I know it's not the glamour, there's not people sitting in the stands like they do at a football game or a basketball game, but you guys still get that same level of commitment. You're out there practicing every day. I know having one that plays golf, that no one's going to watch the golf meets, and hardly, except for parents, no one's going to watch the track meets, but you guys still put that same commitment in every day like the rest of them, so I congratulate you. And the sportsmanship, you know, Genesis, you've got other stories going past, but to do something like that's very, very important, helping someone else along. It's not always about the winning, especially out there, but helping her get across the finish line, I think, was fantastic. So you guys should be very proud of yourself. Those are two great letters, so I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
I know Coach Murphy and I had a chance to talk a little bit the other day, and we're talking, I know it's a team sport, but I also have to think that the stress, the individual commitment that you guys make. I mean, to run those distances as fast as you run them, as individuals, no one else is running for you. You're dependent on your team members for the final score, but you guys are really putting it out there, and it makes me and the rest of us very, very proud of what you do. Exciting at the end, obviously, when there's the cheering and the yelling, but the kid that comes along at the end as you help, I mean, that's just marvelous. Sportsmanship, that's Rockland. That's Rockland. I'm very proud of you, very proud of you.
I always find myself admiring people who have talents that I don't, and running is one of them. A good cross-country runner who I know, my dad actually, told me that when he ran cross-country, he always had one opponent, and his opponent was himself, because he had to fight his body, and more importantly, as he was running, he had to fight his mind that was telling him to quit after your legs hurt and your lungs hurt, and you're just trying to fight through that last mile. So it's cross-country is an incredibly difficult feat, and I admire you for that. But even more so, I admire you for what kind of human beings you are. Those two emails really show what kind of sportsmanship we have here at Rockland High School, and you guys really embodied that. So thank you very much. We're proud of you. Great job, guys and girls.
I think, Mr. Murphy, the one thing, too, is that's kind of a little welcome for Middleborough. We'll have to see what they get in when they get inside the dog pound, if they have that same feeling, Mr. Graziano. I think
also an opportunity to point out the leadership of the coaches, but also Mr. Graziano sets a tone for all the sports at Rockland High School, and we shouldn't forget that, because he has a profound effect on, I think, all the teams and all the students. I've seen him in action on a football field, basketball court, so we're very fortunate to have such an athletic director.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, coaches.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Thank you. Great job.
Don't give up the mic that easy. And thank you for your support of the athletics department, everyone, the school committee, Dr. Alan H. Cron, and Ms. Forlizzi. We have one more event coming up this year that I wanted you to know about. Our unified sports team. We'll be playing Abington and Carver. We have a night game at Abington. That's our special needs students that are paired up with regular education students and athletes for a soccer game. And last year we ran soccer, kickball, and basketball. Three of the best events that we had all year. And I want to thank Phelps Insurance. Jeff and Kim Phelps support that program by buying them the T-shirts for the year. And then finally, this fall today we had two teams qualify for tournament, two first-year head coaches, Emily Adams Murphy for our volleyball team. They're 9-2. And our boys soccer team qualified today, beating Mashpee 4-0. Dan Kimball, Rockland alum, is a first-year head coach. So very proud of them, and the other ones are right behind them. Great. So thank you, and I appreciate having us tonight. Thank you.
Great news. Thanks, Mr. Graziano. Next on tonight's agenda, under new business, we have our 2016 October 1st enrollment information. Dr. Cron?
Yeah, I just want to comment in general. I'm try not to be too political, but overall our enrollment is down this year overall by 28 students. And I also want to point out, just to follow up on last week's conversation about charter schools, that we are actually down this year $905,000 to charter schools. We have approximately 95 students at South Shore Charter, We currently make up nearly 11% of their enrollment.
Really?
I have investigating, what their programs are. I certainly want to support programs that can offer things that Rockland Public Schools can't, but I also want to learn about the process. So I just want to point out that there is, in fact, a very substantial amount of money leaving the district with the charter school, and that our enrollment is, in fact, down a bit. That said, our retention from 8 to 9 is better than it's ever been. We have a real grip on where people are going and why. We do have students moving. We've had 20 or so students moving anywhere from South Carolina to Wellesley they're just moving all over the place. But overall, I think our enrollment is a good story, but I just wanted to put out that there really is a financial cost to losing enrollment.
I'm glad you highlighted that. On my way to the meeting here tonight, I heard an advertisement from those that are proponents of passing question 2, and the advertisement was repeatedly stating that this would not draw funds from the public schools, and I'm glad to hear you say, and to put a number on it so people can understand what a profound effect that does have on us when our enrollment is going off to the charter schools. So I am looking forward to the vote and being able to vote no on question 2, and I appreciate that extra information to help folks be able to understand it.
Absolutely.
I've gotten a lot of comments, if we go back to that, about a lot of questions about question 2, because people are like, where are we looking at? And I think what people got to understand, I'll give you an example. I have emailed the Great Schools organization on 3 different occasions trying to find out. There's an ad that they run talking about a public school teacher, quote, says about how she supports them. They still don't answer you of who that public school teacher is. They don't disclose who it is, so you don't know if where she really is. And also, people got to understand where that money's coming from. One of the biggest supporters of Great Schools is the Walmart family, the Waltons. So it's all out of state. Most of it's out of state money. Corporations trying to control public education. They make a lot of money off of charter schools, and they definitely are draining. And I think the other thing that's interesting is currently there's 72 charter schools. The law says that there could be 120 charter schools. So I guess I don't understand the need for them to put a no-limit cap on it when they could build 48 under the current law as it stands now. So I know we voted to vote no on that, and I want to continue to emphasize that at each school committee meeting to ask people to vote no and vote no against the increase in charter schools. So,
Doctor, excuse me.
No, the other question I have, can we get a copy of the same thing as of October 1st, 2015 to see
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Doctor,
I'll break it down for you as well.
Is there a particular level that we're losing kids to charter school, or is it throughout the K through 12?
It's K through 12. I visited South Shore Charter School a couple weeks ago. I encourage families who are considering sending students to charter school to visit our schools and visit the charter schools. Make up your mind. I want to make sure that people understand the mission of charter schools. I think I understand they serve a purpose. I have no fear of competition. I think competition is healthy. At the same time, I do think it's important that the public understands how they are funded and that people are actually making a profit on these schools and with public funds, which I have a personal really big problem with. We currently have, last year we had 4 kindergartners. This year they took 12 kindergartners. So we sent essentially 28. We've dropped by 28 students in the Rockland Public Schools from last year to this year, and we sent an additional 21 to the charter. And again, I think people should, if they want to choose, but I ask them to come visit even our very old and hopefully soon to be replaced elementary schools. Visit, see the classrooms, see the teachers. They are extraordinary. And visit the charter. Meet the leaders. We're all in the same business trying to make things better for kids. So I don't begrudge them one single bit. And I think that they're all working hard as well. But I encourage families to really come and look. You're not sending your student to a private school. I think sometimes people think, well, I'm going to go to the charter, I'm going to a private school. No, you're going to a public school, and you should go investigate it. That's what I recommend. Again, not trying to besmirch the charter.
On a more positive note, 45 students, or families of these 45 students, have chosen to come to Rockland rather than other schools. So
That's right.
It's actually 51.
Is it
October
51
3rd, it went
now?
to 51. It was 45 September 1st,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
October 3rd
All
was
right,
51.
okay, all right, I read
So
it
we've got
wrong.
6 more school choice.
All right, so that's a plus.
It is.
And so that those people took the time to come here to see what we have and made the choice to send their children here. So you make a good point, Doctor.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Cron, for all that information. Next, under new business tonight, we have 3 items on policy change about the changes to the drug and alcohol policy. Dr. Cron, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The changes, I sent the members of the school committee the changes. I'd be happy to provide the comparison of the current policy to the new to anyone in the public who would like to contact me. There are some very subtle changes. We have 3 subsections, really, of the policy: teaching about drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. There's drug-free workplace policy, and then the third component is the drug-free workplace, teaching about alcohol, and then I must have skipped one: alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students. The changes are subtle, expanded references. Some of the language is changed. Yeah, again, I believe it's in response to the opioid epidemic. I will tell you that the Rockland Public Schools are way out in front on this. Freya Leahy is and the rest of our social workers, and also our community. We have so many community members involved in this that we really have a very strong program going forward, and I'm sure it's only going to get stronger. So I recommend the adoption. I've requested that you waive the first reading. A number of my colleagues in neighboring towns had done the same thing because the changes are really very subtle. There's nothing giant to share, and we are really out in front on this. So that's about all I have.
Make a motion that we adopt the
Waive
new
the first reading?
policies. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I can make a motion to waive the first reading.
Oh, all right,
So I'll make a
fine.
motion to waive the first reading on
Second.
the drug-free workplace policy, teaching about alcohol policy, and drug and alcohol use by students.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will second Mr. Phelps's,
To adopt the changes in policies.
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you.
and I will say,
3
Mr. Crown, I'm
votes.
glad to see that you spelled out specifically in what is prohibited, including vapor and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Okay, next on tonight's agenda, approval of fundraisers. We have some great fundraisers coming up for the Rockland High School. The senior class has cheesecakes and cookie dough sale, also Bulldog items. Drama and Theater Club are going to be having a dining for the cause at the 99 restaurant. The Environmental Club is having a fundraiser at Savers. The Harvard Model Congress is having a bake sale. The sophomore class is selling sweatshirts. At Memorial Park School, the PAC is having a toy box shopping day in November and a pottery paint night in October. The PAC is having a Yankee candle sale at the daycare. So in total, we have 9 fundraisers for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. That is a vote.
One thing on fundraisers, Colleen, I went back and looked at, we've had a bunch that have come up. Can we make sure we stay on top of them? And Carla Dunn and Mr. McCullough, put theirs tonight, that we need to see these completed of what, we know some of them have gone past and meat raffles or whatever, and I haven't seen any of those results.
Okay. Next on tonight's agenda, surplus property. Anything you'd like to touch on surplus property, Dr. Cron?
No, just that this is property that is outdated, in ill repair, and taking up much-needed space most of the time.
Well, VCRs.
Yeah, VCRs.
Where do we
I'm
find
sure
those?
there's.
So they
there's
should contact the superintendent's office for a list of the...
Absolutely. Be happy to provide a list of the surplus property to anyone who would like to pick it up if it is approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's a vote. Thank you very much. Next, approval of the grade 8 field trip to Philadelphia. Dr. Cron.
Ms. Bond, would you like to come up and perhaps talk about this year's trip?
I gave you the itinerary, and it's actually exactly the same as last year, with the exception that Mr. Norris and I already touched base a little bit about. We are staying at a different hotel. We're staying at the Crown Plaza, which is right over the water in New Jersey, about 5 minutes away from the aquarium that we go to, and about 13 minutes away from the main center at the Liberty Bell, because they have, we really want this date, and they have several conventions going on at the hotel that we normally stay at.
Mr. Ratcliffe joining you on this trip?
I can only hope.
He's banned. He's banned for life.
Mr. Norris is well aware of where that went. That went south pretty quickly.
I gotta say, I really, Miss Bond is done. I don't have any kids going anymore, so it doesn't have any effect on me. But I'll tell you what, she does do a fantastic job. We joke about Mr. Retzlis. He was a little lackluster in his chaperone duties, but I went on this trip 3 different times, and Miss Bond, she really is a trooper. She kind of has to take that little principal thing off a little bit and realize the kids are away from home, but she and whoever else she brings as chaperones, it's absolutely, the kids have a fantastic time. And I know she's even added to the kids having to learn about some of this history before we got there. We had an incident one year when they didn't know what, I think it was who Betsy Ross was or something like that. But, so now they have a little briefing.
In a public setting. That was fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I give her a lot of credit, and it's a fantastic time for all the kids.
Well, I will say that Joan Costello from the middle school works with Rich McAllister from the high school and sends kids over. That's what you're right, that's what we do this year, right before the trip, to give them a little bit of American history.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye, that's a vote. Thank you very
Great,
much, Ms. Bond.
Thank you.
Ms. Bond, good luck.
Okay, next up tonight is approval of the daycare handbook. Dr. Cron?
I have nothing to add. Yeah, I think Colleen,
Okay, there's
Forlizzi.
nothing I can point out in particular for changes because the whole handbook has been changed. So I'd like you to read through it and see what you think, and it's the first reading.
So I make a motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you. We will table the first reading of the approval of the daycare handbook. That's a vote.
Along those lines, Colleen, how are we doing financially with the daycare?
Financial of the daycare, well, I'm happy to report that the daycare is thriving, the daycare portion.
Great.
Enrollment is up. We are in the black, budget-wise.
Awesome.
Good.
The $20,000 that the town gave us with our town article, they have purchased supplies, equipment, instructional materials, toys, really put it to good use. It's really getting a fresh new face. And the after-school program, the enrollment is up. We have anywhere from 30 to 50 students per day per school in the 3 elementary schools. We're implementing after-school programs. We're having sports, flag football, soccer. We're having yoga, music, art. We're implementing all sorts of programs under the direction of our assistant director, Marissa Baldassari. And Gina Tate is our daycare director, who is on top of lots of changes.
Morale is good.
Morale is great.
That's great to hear. Seems
Yes.
like there's really an
Fantastic.
exciting atmosphere over there, and we encourage anybody who's watching that needs daycare to contact the daycare office. They're doing a great job there.
Excellent job. I meet with them weekly, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Great. Thank you. Glad to hear it, Mrs. Forlizzi.
Yes.
Next on tonight's agenda, we have an update to you. Right back to you, Mrs. Forlizzi.
This is just on, as many of you have known or are seeing the repaving of Pond Street. We just ask that parents are patient with buses. There may be some late buses, delays here and there, but the project starts at the Webster Street and Hanover line side of Pond Street, going down to the other end of Pond Street, and it will go from today through November 1st. So if we can just be a little patient with the repaving of Pond Street. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And last but not least this evening is public service announcements. Mr. Norris.
Just everybody be safe. We have homecoming coming up. So the seniors and everybody behave themselves, all the kids. Sports continue. I think it's great that Grad just mentioned that 2 of the teams already made the tournament. So hopefully we can get more in there. I know girls soccer has been doing really well with a new first-year coach. So everything has been fantastic. I ask people to be careful out there. Starting to get dark early, and the kids are coming out of sports. They're crossing the street. I understand it was not a kid, but I understand a woman was hit uptown today. So everybody kind of be careful out there. And I want to address one other thing. This whole clown phenomenon. And I know that Mr. Cron's not saying anything, but there was some post on Facebook about somebody telling people and told people, and I'm really getting tired of parents who got to think through things and taking rumors. The school department office has much more important things than to answer phone calls because somebody heard a rumor from somebody that schools were in lockdown over a clown. This stuff has been going on. If there was a true lockdown, I guarantee you that you would know about it. Dr. Cron would be on top of it. If he's not there, Colleen Forlizzi would be on top of it. But Dr. Cron's office is much too busy to take phone calls from some rumor that somebody heard from a third party. It's actually getting kind of crazy out there. So I would ask people to rethink what they're going to put out there as information, and I heard this and I heard that kind of rumor. But Dr. Cron and that entire office has a school department to run to take care of your kids and make sure they're safe. And I can guarantee you if that was the case that we were in lockdown, you wouldn't need to call to ask. You would have already known. So I just want to ask people to rethink before they come out and start spreading rumors about things that are going on in school.
Thank you. Mr. Phelps.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go over to my student representative, our fabulous student representative, Shannon Lindahl.
I just wanted to announce that we raised $1,700 for the breast cancer walk.
Great.
And that because of that, Mr. Finn, Miss Paulding, Miss Armstrong, and Miss Shaughnessy all dyed their hair pink. A few of them have dyed it back now, but it was funny. And Mr. Rockland's tomorrow night at 7 in the auditorium. And this is where like the senior boys have a sort of beauty pageant. And the winner gets a scholarship.
Fantastic.
And a parking spot, right?
Parking space.
That I will personally guard.
And they're working hard at it.
How's everything going so far this school year from a student perspective? Been an exciting, successful,
Yeah, it's been going
productive
good.
beginning of the year?
Spirit Week's this week, so it's exciting.
That's a lot of fun. Well, we're enjoying you having here at our meetings, and keep up the good work. Thank you, Shannon, appreciate it. And then just for me, I was asked by Scott Margolis of the Rockland Fire Department to make a couple of announcements on their behalf tonight. The Rockland Fire Department SAFE program is having a dining for a cause on Tuesday, October 18th from 4 to 10 o'clock at the 99 restaurant. Also, the Rockland Fire Department is hosting its open house, its annual open house at 360 Union Street at the fire station from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Saturday, October 15th. Bring your family up. They always do a fantastic job up there at the fire department at their open house, showing the kids the trucks and answering their questions, and I know there's some good raffles to be had as well. Also this past week, thank you to the Rockland Police Department for hosting our community at their open house. I know my wife and kids were up there and really had a great time. I think it must have been close to the whole police force was there welcoming our community. We're really lucky in our town to have the quality of first responders that we do. So thank both the Rockland Fire Department and Police Department for all they do for us. Other than that, that's all we've got. So the last thing to do tonight would be to have a motion to conclude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful week.